And our word for today on this memorial of St. Francis Xavier Cabrini Virgin on this Monday, November the 13th, our word for today is wisdom. Wisdom, and here to talk about it is the one, the only, Father Mark Davis. Good morning, Father.
Well, good morning. Good. Hey, so if people come...
But wait a minute, I wonder if that's true. One and only Father Mark Davis? I bet there's another Father Mark Davis somewhere.
There's all kinds of Mark Davises.
I have to stop saying that one, because that's a pretty common name.
There was a Mark Davis that won the Cy Young Award.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lawyer who runs for stuff, in town. There's all kinds of Mark Davises.
So I'll stop saying that one.
Just another Mark Davis.
You're our one and only Mark. The one among many, Father Mark Davis.
Just another one. So if people come and bring their toy and bring their check this week, are you going to play Sam Cooke? We're having a party.
Well, now we will.
Sure, yeah.
Yep, now we will.
Write that one down.
So wisdom, the definition of sin, which is probably one of my favorite Catholic definitions of my life, is miss the mark. It doesn't work. And I think one way to look at wisdom is that as you get older, especially, you make different choices, and choices that don't necessarily feel most exciting, but they're wisdom choices that you know they work. So an older man approached an attractive younger woman at a shopping mall. "Excuse me, I can't seem to find my wife. Can you talk to me for a couple minutes?" The woman, feeling a bit of compassion for the old fellow, said, "Of course, sir. Do you know where your wife might be?" "I have no idea, but every time I talk to a pretty woman, she seems to appear out of nowhere."
There you go.
Now, another older man who's a retired military officer, he loved to fish. One day he's sitting fishing, and he hears a voice say, "Pick me up." He looked around, and he saw no one. He thought he was dreaming, so he went back to fishing. He heard a voice, "Pick me up." Finally, he looked down, and on a lily pad was a frog. And the frog said, "Yes, I'm talking to you. Pick me up, kiss me, and I'll turn into the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. I'll make sure that all your friends are envious and jealous, because I'll be your bride." The retired officer looked at the frog for a short time, reached over, picked it up, and carefully placed it in his shirt pocket. The frog said, "What, are you nuts? Didn't you hear what I said? Kiss me, and I'll be your beautiful bride." He opened his pocket, looked at the frog, and said, "Nah, at my age, I'd rather have a talking frog."
There you go. Very cute.
So wisdom, and I think wisdom is that I just love that idea of wisdom, making the smart choices that aren't necessarily the ones that are intuitive, that we want to, and that we are craving, but choices that we make to really get us what we really need and we really want. So my very first baptism, I was still a transitional deacon. It was Easter of 1996 at St. Rose Church, and it was the youngest child of my best friend from St. John's, Deacon Dan Breyer. His youngest son, Luke, was my very first baptism.
Who's our Word of the Day segment host on
Wednesday.
Yeah.
So 2 days ago, on 11/11 at 11 o'clock, I witnessed the marriage of that same young man, Luke Breyer, with his wife, Hannah Sinnott. They are both Marine captains.
Wow.
And Deacon Dan did the homily.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, Deacon Dan is an incredible preacher. You'll know on the Wednesday night sermon, he really is good. He taught math education and math for over 40 years, and he's presented all over the country and the world. He's just really good. And so if I think about wisdom, I think about his homily. So he gave them two gifts. The first was a crucifix, and he said for them to put it up in their home, and he had blessed it as the father of the groom. But he said, it reminds you to be able to love each other sacrificially like Jesus. And that's so obvious, and so many of our own parents sacrifice for us. But there is no love without sacrifice. And it reminds me of the first line of The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck in the early 80s. He said, the life is difficult, but once you really accept and understand that life is difficult, it's not so difficult. And I think the cross is like that. If we just surrender and just get used to sacrificial love and compromising and surrendering our own will, then the life of the Spirit, that's wisdom. That sacrificial love really does grow love in you. Now, the second gift was not as obvious. It was a hinge, this beautiful hinge that was engraved with their names on it. And he said that you put a hinge, without the pin, they're separate. You attach one to the door frame and one to the door, but it's the pin that holds it together. And in a relationship or in our lives, the pin is God. In a marriage, the pin is God that holds the two together, which I think is really cool. And then he said something that I've heard a lot of people said their priest or deacon said to them when they were married, but never heard it. He turned to Luke and said, Luke, your job is to get Hannah to heaven. Hannah, your job is to get Luke to heaven. So as we start this week, it reminds me that wisdom in our day and age means that we live the cross of Jesus, that we realize that the pathway of wisdom that's not intuitive is doing the things we have to do, to surrender, to being able to do the things we need to do sacrificially for love of others and God, and then wisdom and love grows in us. To remember that whatever relationships we have, that God is the pin that holds everything together, and to remember that our job is to get each other to heaven. Let's reflect today. Who are the people in our life whose job it is for us to get them to heaven? God bless you. Have a great week.
Awesome. Thank you,
Father.